So by the time we have a champion, somebody's going to go home with some new hardware. All right, it's all out of the way. This is finals time, guys. Draft number 1 of this best of 5. Let's get it going, bro.
Taking out Rona is actually very smart. They are targeting up against, look at me, who's excellent on Rona, excellent on Petal, and he does have a couple secret heroes up his sleeve.
I think as a first ban here, Team Secret, they said, we're never letting you buff comp us. Now they take out the Rona, their first pick. Even if it's an Adagio ban, that's great for them. If it's not, they might pick it up.
Yeah, and you know, one thing that is going on the favor side of Team Secret right now is that they can pick up a heavy melee bruiser, and it's going to work very well. They don't have to deal with that Rona jumping to that back line anymore, and Palmatoro here can really dictate how the team fight starts.
Okay, so it's an Ardent first pick, Jinyi. What would be a great response here from Snow Tsunami? Have they been playing a lot of Lance this weekend?
They've not actually been playing that much. I think they've played Lance like in one game, but it's not been one that's been particularly impressive. Sorry,
right.
Snow. So I don't think it's a priority pick for them just yet.
Okay, and it is not going to be that priority pick. Glaive and Sky, we still have a Celeste on the table, so we still actually might not have to go for that double weapon. But Secret, there was a almost ban on Saw. Could we get to that Saw Petal Grudge?
Kroll, Kestrel, probably a composition that would work for Team Secret here. And, you know, Kvalifar up in that lane, as long as he's able to find a hero that he's very consistent with,
he can push.
Yeah, pushing that objective is something that works out very well for them. They do have like a later scaling jungle though.
Petal? Is this a Petal? Are we getting a Petal?
No,
is it Jackal? Is it a Petal?
Petal here, it possibly could work if you put that glaive onto that roam, but Lance,
it's gonna be Lance.
So Saw, we were talking about yesterday, Saw is the biggest counter over to Lance.
All right, so Lance to go with these guys. Snow Tsunami and Team Circuit. Somebody's going to go home happy by this end of the best of 5. And into the fold is the 3 tenors. It's going to be Action Jackson, Sona, and Excoundrel.
Thank you very much, Forecourt Jester. We're so excited to be here casting the grand finals of the European Spring Championships. It has been such an incredible tournament so far, and we thought we'd get all of us Europeans up on stage to cast this final series.
I'm not sure you fully qualify as a European, Jackson.
I've got a British passport, come on.
Okay.
That's what you say. We never know, I've never seen it.
It could be a forgery, I suppose. But in any case, guys, we're onto the fold for the grand finals. Make some noise for Team Secret and Snow Tsunami.
Woo! I thought I'd help out. Anyway, I wanted to talk about these compositions we've just come through the draft phase. Like the analyst test was saying, when Saw gets incredibly slow during team fights, it's going to make it more and more easy for a Lance to land the Impale, which can be slightly difficult against something like Sky. Sky has been the classic counterpick to Lance during 118. I just think Kvalifar is going to have to be incredibly careful, especially about when choosing to ramp up with his passive, because Lance can just isolate him so easily. Like now.
There is the fight. Kvalifar goes low. He's going to go down. His first blood. The Tsunami has swept away Team Secret.
Yeah, I mean, swept away. I think maybe you're just starting to see the waves crashing on the shore here, Sona. I'm not sure it's quite over just yet. But that is exactly the case in point I wanted to make. You know, Lance traditionally does find it hard to land Impale on mobile carries. Well, Saw is the absolute opposite, Jackson. He is an immobile carry. You know, he will just end up being incredibly slow. If Lance can land that Impale, it just gives free reign for basically a fantastic afterburn to come out.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially when you're pairing the Lance with the Glaive. It's a lot like the old Ardent Glaive combination that we used to see back in the day, where you can get these ganks off way more easily because of the synergy between those two crowd controls. Very good for picking people apart. And look at this, Kvalifar, he had no chance.
I mean, this is just a classic Glaive early gank here, and pair it with the Lance. Kvalifar has to be aware that he will be a target over and over again for that Impale, and you probably imagine it in lane going to happen quite significantly. Mowgli going to head up towards lane to provide some support. I think it's going to be needed. Kvalifar is going to need that time to ramp up, and Mowgli is going to have to be there to protect him, because you know, Sisiska, whenever the chance arises, will be attempting to put a lot of pain down onto Kvalifar.
We've seen a lot of focus from Team Secret onto this Arden first picked in both of the matchups in the semi-final, first pick it here as well. Do you think perhaps they're tunnel visioning too much on that Arden when Lance is still available?
I think Arden serves a good purpose, especially when providing a layer of protection for Kvalifar. I think Lance is pretty good for doing that, but you know, Mowgli has the chance to make surprise engages. You can catch Sky out. It's a little bit.
Uh-oh, Kvalifar getting jumped on the end, and this time though, Mowgli has his back. Githian wall might be enough. Look at me picking up a second kill for Tsunami in the grand finals.
Even with Vanguard, he's just far too slow to get away from the Lance. I think the issue with first picking Lance, and it's something that we have seen, especially with Skye left on board, if you pick up Skye as your late game carry, then we've traditionally seen it fairly difficult for Lance to lock her down. So they didn't feel too comfortable taking Lance straight away, because people have basically found out that Celeste and Skye, these kind of carries sometimes can be a little bit easy to deal with Lance.
You know, one thing that I like from Snow Tsunami is actually picking up the Skye with the Lance. It really adds so much to her innate ability, which is already there for just getting away from bad situations.
But also it takes that away, or takes that option away from Team Secret. They could have potentially been thinking about playing the Skye, having seen the Lance, but on the first rotation you see Lance. Lance, as you can see, Glaive and Skye taken away here. They'd already picked their Roma, so you're unlikely going to be picking up Lance for the lane in this situation. We have seen it from, I believe it was Team Secret in the very first round, but haven't seen it from them again, and it only works in very specific matchups. And in this situation, having seen the Skye, that meant they essentially probably couldn't have picked up the Lance, because then you're just providing two heroes that aren't going to be able to get onto Skye very easily.
And speaking of matchups, what I really want to see from Snow Tsunami here is the aggressive invades. They need to be denying as much off of Palmatoro, who matches up very weakly in the early game.
Do you know what? I kind of agree with that, but I think what they've been doing has actually been pretty good. The Saw is the biggest threat. Yes, Cruel can be a threat, but we haven't really seen him be a damage threat. No one builds him weapon power. You generally tend to see Shiver Steel into essentially maybe attack speed full tank Cruel. That's the classic European build that we see. Sometimes a bit of crystal power. But honestly, I think what they've been doing is locking down the person that has been the target for Team Secret. You know, Kavalava has been the carry. There's the root once more.
There's the root onto Kavalava, and he gets afterburned into the wall. A good Githian wall will take him out, and Kavalava is dead. They do get a trade kill, though, with the Spectral Smite, so it's a 1-for-1.
Yeah, the trade kill works out pretty good here. And then there's an interaction with Lance and Saw that just makes him so good. I'm just going to say...
So Siska might get jumped on here as well, though. He's got to be careful. Mowgli and Palmatoro, they do have the ability to really stick on to him, but Palmatoro not building much damage yet. It's going to be hard to get the kill onto someone as tanky as Lance.
Absolutely. I don't think we'll see Palmatoro build much damage regardless. We just haven't seen it from Cruels in Europe. What I wanted to point out, another interaction between Lance and Saw that makes him so good. As soon as you see that Rhodey Rush come out, Githian Wall stops it right in its tracks. Some of the only ability for Saw to escape is using that Rhodey Rush, and once you block that, Saw becomes just as immobile as he was when you managed to lock him up with the Impale. So, you know, Lance is just so good into Saw here, and it was a really fantastic last pick from Snow Tsunami. And actually the draft phase, I think, is what has given them the edge here, because they picked up that Skye. They took that away from Team Secret. That meant that Team Secret didn't feel like picking the Lance up, even though they first picked the Ardent, so they kind of shot themselves in the foot.
Oh, Kavalafar. That was a very nice roadie run on the creep to back him away from what could be a gank coming through from Snow Tsunami. I don't know if that was his game sense or if he just wanted to last hit that way, but it worked out.
I think definitely his game sense.
I think something we've seen from Team Secret over and over again in autumn, in winter, is their ability to come from behind, and they're not too far behind in this game. Yes, Snow Tsunami have the early advantage, but Team Secret have such a good composition as they get later into the game. We've seen the Gauntlet working so well with Palmatoro in there as well. We saw one of Team Secret's signature heroes.
I actually think I favor Snow Tsunami in the late game, simply because Skye is so fantastic against Saw, Lance is so fantastic against Saw, and Saw makes himself such an easy target for an isolation afterburn. If you have reflex blocks coming out of that, you kind of render part of the gauntlet useless. I actually think Kavalafar is going to have a really tough time in this game.
Well, both of you like each of the different compositions. I'm going to favor the Kraken in the late game, but for now, in the early game, let's take a look at the items that are coming across from both of these teams.
So Shiver Steel from Palmatoro, this is a classic Cruel first item, gives him more time to build up those weakness stacks, looking for the Spectral Smite. Looks like obviously Mowgli going for Fountain first, actually picking up some early armor here. For No Life having got a book of eulogies, a little bit of sustain, but mainly for, I guess, the weapon power coming out from Look at Me. And I actually think Kavalafar looks like he's going for his own Sorrow Blade first here. Sona, what about the other side of items we're seeing?
Well, looking at Snow Tsunami, we have that Fountain already picked up onto Sisisco. You've got Look at Me going towards his own Sorrow Blade, something we've seen from Glaives time and time again. And No Life building that Crystal Parrots. What you expect, Book of Eulogies is only used for the laning phase.
Yeah, and No Life going for a Broken Myth, which is something that we've seen more classically from Skye. We have seen Shatterglass once or twice, mainly from Skye in the jungle, though. Gives you that more bang for your buck when using forward barrage in the early game. But obviously in the elongated fights, and you're expecting elongated fights versus something like a Cruel and an Arden, so you basically build up those stacks and become more relevant the longer the fight goes on. So I like this from No Life. It's a little bit more of a classic Skye build.
All right, so Siska and Tsunami, they're all sitting up in lane right now, trying to make something happen upon Kavalifar, but he's doing a great job of staying pretty far back. And actually, No Life, I wonder if maybe it's the best thing for him to be shoving the waves quickly with forward barrage. Obviously, he's a bit scared of the push coming out of Saw, but at the same time, Saw has to expose himself to potential ganks if No Life doesn't shove the wave out quickly.
Absolutely. I just think oh, Siska, you have to be very careful, buddy.
He should be fine. Yeah. Palmator gets vanguarded in there, but he doesn't really have the follow-up. Didn't want to pull the trigger on the From Hell's Heart.
That's the thing with combat roll as well on Siska. You can get forward and backwards so easily. Lance is such a mobile hero that it's very difficult to lock him down if he's on point with that combat roll.
You know, absolutely. I'm interested in the teamfight situation. This is something that's going to interest me because I think in the open area, like in the lane, it will favor Snow Tsunami. However, I think repositioning the Saw, especially with Afterburn, can prove pretty difficult in the jungle. Kavalifar might actually have a better time if they choose to fight within the jungle. The Gauntlet will become more effective. He can maybe kite back or, you know, get out with Roadie Rush a little bit more effectively as well. And also then I'm worried about where Sky is going to position because Sky will be the majority of Snow Tsunami's damage as we go on. Yes, Glaive will provide that early game damage boost, but realistically, when we go later in the game, you're going to rely on Sky to provide most of the damage to deal with Kavalifar.
Mowgli, he's got to pop the gauntlet right on out of here, but he's in a bad position. Look at me with the Afterburn. It's going to be enough damage. Snow Tsunami, they're leading 4 kills to 1 right now.
No Life's death from aboves throughout this tournament have been so good. Right there, that death from above isolated anybody coming to help Mowgli and also stop Mowgli from exiting, because obviously you get stunned if they do land on top of you. So they basically said, sealing his fate with that death from the above. Brilliant play from Snow Tsunami. They've looked so good so far.
All right. Team Secret
looking for the turret there. If they'd got it, I think they would have taken that trade. It's happy enough for them with this Saw comp to get those turrets and start ramping up into that late game where they can just start pushing over and over again.
Another interesting interaction between Lance and Saw is if Lance manages to get that damage reduction versus Saw, that's a huge thing because, you know, Saw often does, as you would expect most range carries to do, to attack the closest thing to him. And in this situation, you're either going to be attacking Look At Me or Siska. You might not have the ability to get onto No Life. So if you're attacking Lance in this situation, then he's going to have that damage reduction versus you. So all the time that you're spending...
Oh, that was a little bit close for comfort. Look At Me doesn't find a good Afterburn.
Whoa, the damage from Kavalifar is huge. Look At Me will keep alive with the bouncing. Now No Life not in a good position, but the death from above will stun up Mowgli. Kavalifar just about Modi runs his way away. The Lance Impale is not enough, and that's the first kill for Team Secret. Can they chase further? Palmator tries to get onto No Life, won't be able to take it down, but Team Secret turn around the fight.
That Roadie Rush from Kavalifar was absolutely insane. Right at the last moment, just escaping from the singular auto attack that would have spelt his doom. So Siska and No Life, they must be unhappy with that. No Life actually jumped in with the Suri strike, and that Roadie Rush came out right at the last minute, meaning that No Life was facing the wrong way. Forward barrage wasn't able to get on top of him, and oh wow, Kavalifar knowing exactly when to execute his skills.
Some great items being picked up for Tsunami off the back of that fight, though. They've got the Atlas Pauldron down to Siska. Taking a look at the replay, that damage is insane.
Wow. Watch it. The Suri strike comes in, and there is the Roadie Rush right out of the damage there from Kavalifar. Absolutely brilliant.
Just survives at the end. Look at how close he was to going down. Look At Me gets taken out as well. And just Team Secret showing how well they coordinate within those team fights there. Positioned perfectly, played it perfectly. We're able to bring Snow in and then take them down.
Look At Me is hovering around here yet again. I'm sure he'd like to find a few more kills in this early game on Kavalifar, because that's really when Tsunami have the edge with these ganks. But Mowgli is sticking very close to his buddy in the lane.
Yeah, I think you have to, though, because you are such a target. When you're pushing these lanes as Saw, you're just going to become more and more immobile in an open area, and that is when Lance will look to strike. And combine that with the damage coming out from No Life, who's actually picked up an Eve of Harvest second, so opting for a little bit more of a defensive build, wants to sustain, knowing that you're probably going to need that sustain versus Saw. I think is a very clever item choice. And you know, Kavalifar has to be so careful with his positioning. Hasn't actually taken the first turret of the game yet at 12 minutes with a Saw composition that is kind of odd. But it's just because of the testament to how much pressure Snow Tsunami have been putting out.
Yeah, Secret have actually been doing a good job of pushing it down when they have the opportunity. They basically traded a gold mine for nearly the entire turret, but they know that they need to be very careful with their positioning. If they try and go for the turret too early here, if they jump the gun, they're going to get wiped out by ganks.
Well, we were talking about the even harvest of Broken Myth on No Life. Let's have a look at the other items in this game. Look At Me's picked up a Sorrow Blade. There's an Atlas on Siska. Yep. Lots of damage coming down from all of these teams and a lot of defense.
Whoa.
The Gauntlet's popped.
Yeah, Mowgli trying to maybe catch Look At Me there, but he's able to get back just in time. Sisiska could have turned and got a big impale as well.
So big items here I want to pick up. Sona, you mentioned one. Atlas Pauldrons on Sisiska, super important versus something like a Saw. He builds the stacks less quickly, also then reduces that attack speed when it's most critical. I expect to see Atlas Pauldrons on Look at Me as well, so Sisiska and Look at Me likely going to be picking up those. Aegis already finished on Palmatoro. The only threat that you're really contending with as the Cruel at this point is going to be the Crystal Power Sky, so that's a really good pickup here, and 3 reflex blocks as well, so especially important that one is on Kvalifar so early on.
Do you like Kvalifar going for the breaking point here? I feel like in these fights he's getting burst out very, very quickly. It's hard for him to stay in them for a long time as Look at Me goes for the gank.
Speaking of getting burst down, Kvalifar doesn't quite connect with the impale. He does get knocked into the wall though. There's the kill for Tsunami. They put some damage down onto Mowgli as well, and they're going to push for the turret.
Yeah, and they may even get it with the death from above here. There's a lot of damage. They're kind of ignoring the majority of Team Secret.
Yeah, Look at Me needs to get out of there, but No Life, he was untouched, so he can finish up the turret. It's a great position to be in against a Saw taking the first turret of the game.
What is so important here is, reflex block is critical for Kvalifar, but you can only block one thing, and it's about blocking the most important thing. I actually think in this situation, blocking the afterburn would have been better than blocking the impale, because you saw here he actually reflex blocks the impale afterwards, but it was too little too late. He'd already been repositioned at that point. So blocking the afterburn may have actually saved his life, because he may have been able to be impaled and then Rhodey rushed away towards the turret.
A point to bring up here as well, that as we see them get the turret, look at how many times Team Secret have died and look who the deaths are on. Kvalifar has died 4 times. It shows where the focus from Tsunami is.
But also how good the composition from Snow Tsunami is against the Saw. And actually, you've got to remember that Team Secret picked into this. So they picked into this Saw. They were threatening in that pre-game interview.
The steal! Stolen! Tsunami fighting it with the death from above. They want to fight too. Mowgli with the gauntlet comes in. Look at Me in the middle of things. He's got a lot of AoE, but he actually afterburns away, trying to knock Kvalifar out of the fight. Tsunami are in the retreat right now.
Yeah, they actually blew all of their initial CC onto Palmatoro. They're probably the wrong target to be looking for in that situation. You can see, I think, if they're not focusing Kvalifar, they will end up losing. If you leave Saw alone, he will completely decimate your team. Now, actually, Sona picked up a point here earlier. This is just a steal. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, Sky's got so much burst damage right there. Yeah, we're going to replay it and rewind. A little bit of a rewind for you, just in case you missed the steal for the 3rd time. But I wanted to pick up on a point that Sona was making about the breaking point. I actually would have liked to see an Aegis earlier on here. I think it's more important that he has the defense. He is becoming so targeted that actually all of this damage isn't going to make a difference if he's going down right at the start of these team fights. Aegis would have been great. I actually would have liked to potentially see a Serpent's Mask. Once he winds up, you get to lifesteal as much as possible. But I think the breaking point makes sense if he is able to keep alive. It will basically single-handedly win him the fight, especially versus, these elongated fights that you potentially could be seeing if he's not immediately burst out.
So I like the fact that Sisiska is going for some cooldown acceleration here, actually. He's able to then stick on Kvalifar past those Rhodey runs even more easily, and I feel like he's not actually going down that fast yet. The damage from Palmator and Kvalifar just isn't there, and Snow Tsunami, they're going directly for a tier 2 turret as the Kraken is started by Team Secret. This could be a very interesting development.
Yeah, it looks like Snow are going to trade the Kraken for a couple of turrets here. This is a very interesting trade. If they get 2, it's probably worth it. They stop the Kraken. This is great from Snow. Team Secret, though, are going to try and position. No Life is low. Doesn't have that much energy as well. From Hell's Heart does land onto him. There's the gauntlet. Look at Me's out towards the side, though. What a trade by Tsunami. They might lose Sisiska off towards the side. Can the rest of Snow Tsunami get away? That's the big question.
Yeah, Palmatora wants to keep this fight going. He finds Look at Me. Look at Me has the afterburn available. Should be able to get out of here. Team Secret, that was a very uncharacteristic play from them. They actually didn't finish the Kraken and still lost 2 turrets. That is so weird from a team that's traditionally just had great decision making.
So our Team Secret going to go for the Kraken at this point in time. Is 8 seconds until Sisiska is up. I think it would be risky given that No Life is now back with full energy. We're going to get a replay here. Potentially.
Replay. They do get the turret. There's a big fight after this, of course, as Team Secret do come across. The Kraken has
No Life!
There's the kill. No Life was just about surviving. Mowgli's going to go down. Palmatoro there as well. A great fight from Snow Tsunami as they managed to pick up 2 as the Kraken was getting focused down by Team Secret. They're going to back away. Palmatoro's still alive. Do Snow Tsunami start the Kraken? They do. They need to be careful. Palmatoro is waiting in the wings.
I don't know how much Palmatora could do in this situation. It looks like Look at Me is perfectly poised to try and bash him away. Palmatora maybe. No, there we go.
He should not have gone back in. It was way too late. No Life fighting another kill. Tsunami are rolling over Team Secret with their signature hero on their side. This could be very scary mentally for Team Secret.
Absolutely, and actually, sorry you guys missed that Kraken fight. What I can only imagine happened is obviously all that burst damage coming down onto Kavalifar here. No life now, pushing into the base. Kavalifar, look good. I mean, Sky is just so good against Saw. Sky is one of the best carries you can pick against Saw.
She's got that Shatter Glass as well, so she's got so much crystal power behind her. The Kraken is coming in. Palmatoro is just about to respawn. This is the game-defining fight for both of these teams.
Yeah, Tsunami, they're going to be looking to come in here, just defend the Kraken long enough for the turret to go down. Mowgli trying to use the gauntlet to set up a fence that Tsunami cannot get through, but No Life just using the reflex block. He wants this turret from Hellstar. Oh, what was that? It threads the needle. No Life, he's got to get out of here. Surrey Strike buying him some time. We've already seen Kavalifar pick up one, but I don't know if it's going to be enough.
Oh,
No Life, he's trying to get a forward barrage.
He's going for the crystal. They're going to get it.
He's going to get the Kraken.
Tsunami are going to take the Vayne. They've done it. They've won game one here versus Team Secret. They've taken them at their own game, and Snow Tsunami are 1-0 up here in the grand finals.
Honestly, I could have called this from the draft phase. This was a pure draft win for Snow Tsunami. They managed to get the Skyer and the Glaive in their first rotation. It meant that Lance was unable to be picked. I think actually the Arden first pick shot Team Secret in the foot. They couldn't then pick Lance up for themselves even if they wanted to. And it just meant that Lance could be picked with Sky against a Saw. What were you thinking? Especially, I mean, you see a Sky, immediately you probably think that Saw might not be the best option here, but then the Lance comes out and suddenly it makes Saw a completely irrelevant carry hero just because of how immobile he is. Lance and Sky thrive on that kind of thing.
You know, I really feel like Team Secret, if they hadn't have died so many times in the early game, maybe they had some avenues back in. We did see at least one or two encouraging fights where Kavalifar was able to get back and still do some good damage. It just wasn't enough.
So you can see the Bone Saw there. You can see the idea behind that Saw build. Essentially, he was looking to just shred the armor, but honestly, I think he should have prioritized defense a little bit more readily. That should have been an Aegis far quicker. He needed the resistance to the Crystal Power Sky in this situation.
Flipping him, as we said, so Snow Tsunami is going to be up for the first pick, first ban. No Glaive. Will Secret continue to kind of target down some of these crystals?
Well, you know, last round they actually picked up and banned the Rona, making sure that Look At Me doesn't jump into that back line as a heavy bruiser. I feel like this round coming up, Team Secret will be able to lock up a Sky. I just have that feeling that Kavalifar will be a huge impact in this game, and it might be a little bit too overwhelming for Snow Tsunami.
All right, so there it is, Adagio. They are going to be sticking to their creed of we're not going to allow anybody to buff comp us. The Sky does come out for Tsunami. They are not going to be giving that one up, but this will leave Secret, well, if I had to guess, into a Celeste.
Not necessarily. Celeste was picked by Secret the other day just to make sure that Redx on G2 wasn't able to secure her up. Secret, however, they do have a lot of other compositions that they're able to play, especially when going up against a Sky first. They have counter picks already in place.
Oh, Genie, could this be our laning Kavalifar Lance?
It could be, but it could also be that jungle Arden that we've been seeing coming out from Team Secret there. They've done both of these, you know, they certainly like to mix things up, and you know, these could both be carries.
Like, how do you guess this? You see this, you're like, crap, which one is it going to be?
They're trying to mess with Snow Tsunami's minds here.
So not only does Secret not ban somebody in the semis, now they're going to be leading into this. That's going to be a Rona. Snow Tsunami very likely to put Look At Me on that one, Room.
Yeah, and this is actually like starting off, they're countering very heavily. Picking up that Rona, going up against two heavy melees, it looks like things are already turning on the side of Snow Tsunami. This is one of the strongest suits. Is able to grab a draft pick to counter up against their opponents.
All right, triple melee for Secret with a Taka. We're gonna have to see if we can bump those stats up a little bit on this one, but Snow Tsunami with a Finn, it's gonna be hard to chew through, but to bring us all the action, it'll be the three amigos. Action Jackson, Sona, and X-Scoundrel.
Wow, what an incredible first game we had to the grand finals. Really, both teams putting up some extremely interesting stuff. In the second game here, we've got Team Secret running a composition we saw from them at the beginning of the tournament, which we thought was super weird. How do you feel about it this time?
I quite like it. And now, the interesting thing is that we have traditionally seen Skye do well against Lance, but you pair it with an Arden, you pair it with that Gauntlet, it makes repositioning for Skye that much more difficult. And then you add in the Taka, and this is 3 people that are going to make life very difficult for Skye to survive. I don't like Lance solely into Skye, but you need the addition of these other heroes to provide more of a threat to this very heavy repositioning.
Team Secret's composition here to me screams early game. Last time they built, it was early game, aftershock. They went for the tension bow on Cavalifar as well. It's all about getting early damage down and just playing to win it before that 15-minute mark.
It's actually a lot about getting that lockup and getting the on-hit effects from the Lance. You take the tension bow into aftershock is what we saw from Cavalifar on the first day. It worked out very, very well. You give a lot of easy targets for then the attacker to jump in onto. You make it very easy for him to start doing some burst damage. And I think, No Life's going to have to be very careful. This goes to late game, however. The composition from Snow Tsunami looks pretty awesome.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I feel like Look At Me has shown some incredible plays so far on the Rona, but Siska,
he jumps in, the Impale comes down, but of course Finn's so good into Lance because you cannot stop him. You cannot get that crowd control down. There's still a fight going on here, down towards the bottom side. Look At Me will jump away into the fray. It was actually out of the fray as he goes down towards his turret.
Yeah.
Some actually very aggressive play out of Team Secret, like you expected. Look At Me can jump up here.
They go in!
They stealth in with Kaku, finish it up with a Vanguard. That is how you use a Taka.
That's exactly what Team Secret wants as well. The early kills, the early jungle invades. They get so much gold out of doing this.
Yeah, and what is also great about Cavalifar is when you manage to get that damage reduction like I talked about versus Saw, you can do it as well versus Skye. That forward barrage's efficacy will be reduced too, so should Skye ever get locked up and focus Cavalifar, he'll be taking a lot less damage than his compadres on the rest of his team. But honestly, I really like the way Team Secret have played here. I think they completely knew that Skye was on the cards again for No Life, and they have picked accordingly.
Cavalifar is able to pretty happily 1 versus 2 for the time being.
Yeah.
He's doing so much damage. He's doing a great job of landing those impales whenever he sees the opportunity. And actually, I really, really like the build that Cavalifar is going here. I feel like the aftershock on-hit style effect thing, when you can hit multiple targets per attack, is so strong.
Are we going to see both Palmotoro and Cavalifar go for on-hit style heroes here? We're going to see maybe another Aftershock Taka. Hasn't worked out too well so far, but pair that with the Aftershock Cavalifar's Lance. And maybe as soon as those basic attacks are landing, you're going to be chunking pretty heavily. And also, the cooldown reduction is going to offer you numerous sources to reposition and re-secure someone up. Look at me, just escaping with the sliver of life, or has he?
He's going to jump over with Into the Fray, but here comes Palmotoro trying to get the damage down onto that Rona, not able to do it. Cavalifar also clears the wave so effectively with that Lance. It's just so much damage you put down. If you jump onto No Life with the Impale, you get another auto attack off as well. He's got such long range. It's really difficult for Snow Tsunami to win out unless they manage to survive into the later portion of the game.
The issue for me here is, and I think especially as we get towards the mid-game and Suri Strike becomes more available here for Skye, it's all going to be about Mowgli. How restricted can he make Skye's movement with that Gauntlet? Because that's going to be the key. Realistically, in most cases, it's going to be pretty difficult to lock up Skye unless you're coming from an area of superior vision. And I think it's all going to be on Mowgli as to whether he can set up Cavalifar and Palmotoro nicely to burst that Skye out. Because once the Skye's down, you just have to deal with the Rona, and yes, she will be an issue, but it doesn't look like Look At Me is getting the same level of aggression and snowball potential that we have seen him had previously on this hero.
Okay, so Team Secret, it's about 4 minutes. They picked up that first kill and a nice gold advantage. They're about 500 in the lead, but that's nothing too tremendous considering how much early game they have in their composition. Do they need to be doing more?
I definitely think they need to be a little bit more proactive when it comes to trying to lock down No Life, but look at Siska. He's essentially leaving Look At Me to farm his own jungle and basically providing a layer of protection. Look at me now, the target once more.
Yeah, that might be biting Look At Me in the butt a little bit. Siska leaving him to his own devices is definitely allowing space for Team Secret to at least try and steal away some camps.
And Team Secret need to make the decision here. Do we attempt to try and shut down No Life even though they have the Finn essentially babysitting her in lane? Or do we just be super aggressive onto Look At Me, at least starve out one of the heroes on the side of Snow Tsunami? Because at the moment, Snow Tsunami are weathering the storm.
I think a big thing is if you look at the farm though, Look At Me only has 15 farm, whereas Palmotoro's got 28. That's almost double at the moment. So Look At Me is falling behind little bit by little bit.
They need to continue that though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, you know, something worth noting is actually the contract gold between Mowgli and Sasiska. Sasiska is generating a ton of it up in the lane by helping out No Life. Mowgli getting there a little bit more slowly.
It's going to accelerate how good Finn becomes as well, because once you can get those defensive stats on him, he just becomes a huge body blocking tool for numerous things, especially for this Sky. You know, he can just stand in front, try and soak up most of the damage coming out from Lance or anything like that. As long as No Life is staying behind and the front line's coming in from Finn, then it'll be hard, I think, for Team Secret to get on top of No Life.
Kvalifar has now finalized that tension bow, so he's definitely going for that early game build, the on-hit stuff. We got an Aftershock finished for Palmatoro.
Yeah.
This is a big power spike that I feel like they need to use right away.
Yeah, if they can isolate or at least lock up No Life with the Lance Impale now, then they're going to have huge amounts of burst damage if both Kvalifar and Palmatoro can lock up together.
Here comes the fight. Kvalifar will Glyphian wall them back, but not able to get much going on there. He's going to jump back in onto Look At Me. That's a great target. Whoa. And here comes Palmatoro as well. But they do not burst him down. He's still alive, which is huge, because it means that Team Secret can't push the advantage.
Polite Company is going to go so good in a lot of these situations. That fortified health can be literally the line between life and death here for the majority of Snow Tsunami. But Team Secret, they are giving them no quarter. They're going for those back camps. They're looking to be as aggressive as possible. No Life now taking a lot of damage from Kvalifar with that tension bow. And Jackson, you were completely right. They are now essentially on a timer with this tension bow because, again, it falls off very rapidly. I mean, we used to see tension bow Ringos back in the day, and they had a timer to use it. You know, it becomes less and less effective as the game goes on.
You know, especially now that fountains have been picked up on both sides, I think it's already getting to a point where you really have to get that burst down immediately or it's not going to go well. We saw Look At Me get very low. If a fountain had been there, they could have turned the fight around.
The team coordination between Team Secret has to be absolutely on point. The interesting thing for me is once the Aftershock is completed for Kvalifar, you are essentially adding to the tension bow. You're making it a little bit more useful in the mid-game. Kvalifar going to combat roll away.
Oh, this could be bad for him, though. Not enough engagement from Tsunami, and he turns it around. In fact, Palmatoro trying to get on to Look At Me. Kaiten in.
Oh my God!
He nearly goes down. Has to back away. Fountain from Mowgli just barely keeping him alive. That was very back and forth.
Well, you said Fountain was going to be the deciding factor, and each Fountain saved a member of the team there. So Siska has to walk away, has to back himself away, not able to catch anyone in the Polite Company. But Fountain saved Palmatoro, Fountain saved Look At Me.
Yeah, two Fountains right there were the unequivocal saviors of both members of the team. I actually couldn't believe the burst damage that went down onto Palmatoro there. He did go a little bit deep. I think he took some turret shots, and then Rona's Red Mist turned on. She has got the Book of Eulogy. She will be healing a little bit from it, but obviously she's working towards the Serpent's Mask, where that will become more and more effective. Once that Serpent's Mask is completed, Look At Me is going to be very difficult to kill, especially with that Red Mist going away.
I want to talk about Force to Cord, because usually it's an amazing teamfight tool. However, you have to wonder how much Team Secret will mind being pulled into the Snow Tsunami team.
It's not going to happen. He's going to be using it as a peeling tool. That's what we generally tend to see Finns do when they don't want to pull anyone in. If they, basically they'll ignore Finn, because they can't land any CC on him. So if they ignore Finn and they head towards No Life, Finn can force the cord them back away from No Life and keep him safe.
That was very, very close to Look At Me getting impaled. If anyone really does, Kvalifar and Palmatoro can jump on them and deal a lot of damage. So Snow Tsunami's got to be careful here.
I think my tactic for Team Secret would be here is let's take out Look At Me as soon as we can in a team fight and then worry about No Life. You know, we can deal with No Life once we've dealt with the threat of Rona. And Rona's going to go down very quickly at this point in time. No Life gets locked up.
He does get locked up. Mowgli's going to jump in as well. The Fountain comes out just to keep him alive, but at the moment they're not quite able to burst through the Snow Tsunami frontline, which is that Finn.
Now, one thing that I often find is an interesting point between Lance and Sky is there has to be a lock-on for these Suri strikes to become available. So if Lance can get in range before an auto attack has been made, either Sky's going to have to be very, very key on either auto-attacking a minion so she can get the Suri strike around it.
Oh, Kvalifar, he just comes right back up from the gold mine as Tsunami trying to take the turret. It's going to be a quick kill on a No Life. Look At Me in the middle of things. He life steals a bit, but is it going to be enough? The root, Kvalifar finds it. 2 kills, force the cord to Siska. Siska wants more, but he's got no more backup from his team.
I want to bring out a huge point there. Siska's fountain was still on cooldown from that early aggression. It meant that he wasn't able to help No Life and Look at Me stay alive.
Yeah, I don't know how effective it would have been, just because of the positioning of that team fight was far better for Team Secret. They came from an area of low vision for Snow Tsunami. Snow Tsunami had no idea where they were. They weren't in lane, and they were all pushed up towards that first tier turret of Team Secret. I've got to question why there were no flares, no scout traps protecting that flank position, especially with No Life so far pushed up in lane. It made it such an easy target for a Githian wall and a Lance Impale.
So right now, Team Secret, they're leading by about 3,000 gold at 10 minutes. That's not too bad, but they've got to keep this pressure up. Tsunami, we've seen that when they're in a good position, they can do great damage.
So this is the replay that just happened here. I won't talk about the Look at Me part going down. What I really want you to know is just how good the positioning was from Team Secret when they looked to engage this fight. Lance Impale locked up onto Skye because they came from an area where Skye was caught between basically the rest of Team Secret and the wall. It made it very difficult for her to reposition. And also, the Githian wall able to get full impact because right into the side of the Halcyon Fold means it gets the stun and made it very easy for both Tucker and Lance to focus down the Skye. And that's what you want to see, right? Once Skye's locked up, it's going to be basically lights out.
Absolutely. So now looking across at the items, we've got a few more big ones picked up. Palmatoro's gone for that Broken Myth. No Life has 2 completed, Broken Myth and Eve of Harvest.
Yep.
How big is that Eve going to be here?
It really depends. I want to say that No Life getting locked up, he may just escape here with Into the Fray. Now, the Eve of Harvest is going to be a really interesting item. If you do see a Suri Strike, if you do see No Life able to get out of the initial burst and lock up, then it's going to prove very effective with Fora Barrage and getting the life total back up. Because you've got to remember, let's be honest, if Team Secret don't get No Life on the first attempt, it's going to be very difficult to try it again. Because by that point, she'll have a target locked. That point, she'll be able to start Suri Striking all over the place. And that's when Eve of Harvest is going to come into play. So, you know, there is one opportunity for Team Secret to take out Skye now. One opportunity, and that's the first engage.
I do like the fact that Palmatoro is going very heavily into the crystal, though, not building a tension bow of his own and going full proc. It means that he can Kaku, regenerate some health, and maybe try and go for a second attempt. It's going to be hard, though.
It's the guerrilla warfare build. It's the you jump in, you use Kaku, and then you get out and you come back in once your cooldowns are off. But the issue is that you have to be so key with your positioning with Kaku to make sure you're keeping on top of Skye. And initially, I think, especially with now that Eve of Harvest being completed, I think it's going to be so difficult if they don't get her locked up by Lance to actually take her out in these team fights. And also, it really depends on Arden. Arden, like I said, I think will be the key factor, the defining factor for Team Secret's fighting potential. Because if they can have the gauntlet, then it means that Skye has a little bit more restriction when coming to repositioning. And also, one reflex block, guys. She can't block the gauntlet and the Impale.
I think one of the big things in this game is how much fun was denied off Look at Me as well. He's only just completed his Serpent's Mask. Usually that Rona acts as almost a front line that you have to walk through to get to your Skye. They can't do that at all. Like, she can't defend her Skye.
Yeah, let's talk about this after this, potentially. Look at Me gonna get locked up.
Oh, Cavalifar going right back in with Mowgli. That's a great Githian wall, keeping the fight moving. Look at Me does have a bit more health. He should be able to get another Red Mist off soon, but Mowgli with the gauntlet stops that right in his tracks. Palmatoro keeping the pressure on. 2 quick kills for Team Secret.
Snow Tsunami, they didn't want to go back in. They wanted to leave Look at Me to die in that situation. And actually, No Life walked straight into the gauntlet. That spelt his doom, and this means Team Secret are going to have a huge opportunity here to push on. So Siska going to try and stun them up, but I think they'll just ignore him at this point. They're going to go straight for that turret.
That's what they've been doing the entire game. Just ignore the fit.
Exactly.
Go on the back line. You don't need to fight the fit.
You don't need to. You don't need to worry about the fit at all. So I want to point out something that I found kind of interesting in this Rona pick. I'm not quite sure what it's designed to do. Right, we've classically seen Rona during the EU Championships to be a threat to something like a Celeste, to be a threat to something like a Kestrel. What is Rona attempting to be a threat to here? Everyone is running at you. Rona doesn't need to run at anybody. And she's so starved, she's not really providing a big damage threat.
If she had more damage, it would be hard for Palmatoro and Cavalifar, who are both melee, to sit on No Life.
Yeah.
Because Look at Me would be that front line, along with Siska, doing damage. Right? That's the big thing that I think she provides.
I think what they were planning on doing was making sure that Look at Me didn't get so far behind. And then if all 3 melees go onto No Life, they're going to be grouped up, and that's where Red Mist is going to come to play. Red Mist will start doing huge amounts of AoE damage if she was more fed. The real awesome thing that Team Secret have done here is they put so much pressure on No Life in lane, it forced Siska to babysit, which meant that Look at Me had absolutely no support in the jungle. And then both Palmatoro and Mowgli dominated that jungle, really starved that gold away from Look At Me, and made it so that she just wasn't a factor. Rona just hasn't been a factor during this game so far.
I mean, Look At Me only recently picked up the Serpent's Mask, and that's the only big item on her entire kit. She's 0-3-0, 44 farm. If you compare that to Palmatoro's 84, it really illustrates how badly she has been shut down. Team Secret, so much pressure out of these guys.
It's a really nice tactic, like I said. I really enjoyed the fact that, yeah, they knew they probably couldn't do too much with Skye in lane. They did manage to get a couple of kills early on, but because of the fact that Finn was babysitting her, there was no way they were going to come away with anything massive when it comes to lane ganks. What is most important is how they approach that jungle, and you picked up on it really nicely earlier on. You said they're just, they're starving Look At Me out at this point, and it's worked so effectively because Rona classically so good against elite champions with Red Mist, just not happening now because there's only a Serpent's Mask there.
Well, they are going to start up the Kraken, and Snow have decided to fight there. Goes the damage, the gauntlet comes down. Look At Me still alive with that Red Mist, and No Life is off towards the side, but walks into the gauntlet. Palmatoro is still alive. Mowgli there as well. They're not going to be able to save this guy, definitely, and he's going to be able to escape off towards the side. But 3 members of Team Secret chase him down. There's not much you can do.
So, case in point right there, Rona did absolutely nothing.
But if she was fed.
If she was fed, that would have been really good because she was in a choke point. Red Mist would have been hitting everybody, but she's not fed. She's doing no damage. And Team Secret are actually playing it exactly like I thought they would. They're focusing Rona. They're taking it out of the picture, making it a 2 versus 3, and then they could just pile on Skye because you're not going to be worried about a Finn. He's not going to do anything. They just pile on Skye, and then they just chain their CC, try and lock her up, and it doesn't matter how much you Suri strike, she's just going to go down.
Sasiska is 0-0-0 in 16 minutes in a 7-kill game. All of those, of course, going to Team Secret, but you can see Sasiska hasn't been focused even sort of ambiently, like accidentally. No opportunities have presented themselves where Secret needed to kill him.
Exactly. I think Sasiska, his benefit is going to be, I think he's overdrive his quibble now, so he's going to have to stun. He needs to be landing massive stuns in this situation, using Force Accord to provide protection. But the problem is, it's just Look At Me on this Rona. It's kind of just useless. He doesn't really do anything at this point in time. He's just a body.
All right, Team Secret starting to make their way into the base of Tsunami with the Kraken. Speeding forwards here, Look At Me, doing some good damage with No Life to the Kraken, but with Team Secret still very healthy, they might try and go for a bit more here. Palmatoro right in there with X-Redsu, getting the damage on the turret. They found all they can, they're gonna back away. Oh! Forced Accord! Snow Tsunami does not want Team Secret backing away right now. Palmatoro, the main focus, but Look At Me falling very, very low. Fountain keeping him healthy for now. Mowgli could be the first to fall. Impale misses. Kavalifar doesn't know what he needs to. No Life picks up 1. Mowgli, the gauntlet was not there in time. He's gonna be able to get away, but a great death from above lands onto Kavalifar, and he's going to be going down. 2 kills for Tsunami, none for Secret, but they do a lot of damage to the base.
Yeah, but they have recuperated some gold in this situation, Jackson. It's now only a 4,000 disadvantage. It's a massive swing back for Snow Tsunami now, and they're going to be able to pick up some turrets of their own. That first turret eventually going to go down where they had so many issues at the very start. Look, this is just after the Forced Accord had happened. The real big point was that it was a 3-man Forced Accord. It put Team Secret in a situation where actually they couldn't really focus the target because everybody was on top of each other. Finn was doing a great job of being a body blocking tool in that situation. That's what Finn can be in the late game. He can be a massive body blocker, and they were right next to the turret. So that, they were like, oh, we can't really reposition here. The turret is doing extreme work, and we're kind of caught off guard. A lot of their engages have been meticulously planned. They know exactly what they want to do in this situation. When they're caught off guard like that, they panic. They don't know where to apply their CC. They're not coordinated. They're probably shouting down the comms to each other like, oh my god, focus somebody, and it just doesn't work out. And that was a really nice surprise engage from the Finn.
Is there a point at which this Team Secret composition falls off? Aftershock Tension Bow not strong in the late game. Have we reached that point?
I think it's already falling off. But the issue for me is that Rona needs to start at least ramping up. She's managed to finish the Aegis now. So the Aftershock and the Palmatoro's Crystal Power build are going to start being less effective towards the Rona. And she looks like she's building some more shielding as well. So maybe not actually realizing that the damage might not be the key point for her here. With the more shielding, the more effective her Serpent's Mask is going to be, and she can just survive longer. The longer she survives, the more of an annoyance she's going to be, and maybe even more of a body blocking tool, which can be more effective as well.
That's the key thing for me. I think Look At Me right now has kind of cut his losses. He knows he can't get to the point where he's doing enough damage, so he's just building tanky to be another solid frontline body to keep No Life alive. No Life picking up the Frostburn here is definitely interesting.
Super good.
Gonna be able to kite, but Team Secret, they want to start the Kraken yet again.
Yeah, this is the big fight for Team Snow. They can't let that Kraken go down. They're gonna actually just stay in their base. So they've decided to leave it. I don't agree with this decision. They've only got one turret left.
Yeah,
unless they fight perfectly under that turret, there's no way they can defend via Kraken.
If I'm completely honest, it's taking a long time for Team Secret to go down because you need to look at some of the items. 2 Aegis, there is an Atlas Pauldrons on Kavalifar as well. There's a Crucible and a Fountain. Team Secret are taking a long time to go down. They've managed to get a good gauntlet here.
They've got the gauntlet in. The death from above comes down but doesn't really connect. The joke poke does come across. No life very low.
He's stunned
he
up.
didn't get Crucible. He's being stunned up, but he's going to try and survive. Can he dodge around?
Strike. Oh, no.
Just about
Get out of
but
there.
he does get taken out. Look at the damage though. Everyone is so low. Palmatoro goes into the fox in a box to try and survive. Look at me now fighting up against Kavalifar. Mowgli there as well, so Siska, and look at me
the Kraken.
versus
Look at the
Kavalifar.
Kraken.
Yeah, the Kraken is just walking into the base right now, backed up by Palmatoro. At this point, Team Secret, they're just running interference to stop Look at Me and Siska from going back. I think Look at Me knows this is all over. He's going for the style points for a few more kills. Team Secret, they're going to be evening up the series at 1-4-1.
Yeah, Look at Me just taking the minion when they know there's no way they can get back here, and Team Secret coming back and making this a real series here in the final of the EU Championships. Palmatoro with the backdoor, Kraken doing some work.
Here that we have the draft ready, so we'll get yours on the next one, and maybe Rome will actually figure out which way he wants to fall on it. So here we are going to be repeating all those picks that you did see a bit earlier here, guys. Arden was out, Adagio was the return, and that does put us now with the Sky. We led into Atlance, the Kestrel, Finn into Celeste, and now it's the last pick here, Jinyu.
And as a crew.
Awesome, great. They had so much time to think about it. They're just not even gonna let us wait any longer. So once more, we are gonna go into the fold with the 3 Musketeers. It is gonna be Action Jackson, Sona, and Excoundrel.
Thank you again for the awesome introduction, Forecourt Jester. We're looking forward to getting into this game 3. We're seeing some cool picks come out. We've got Mowgli on his signature hero, Finn. I cannot wait to see if he can have another great performance on it.
Well, you know, Finn is actually pretty good against Lance for multiple reasons. You saw in the last game, unable to get affected by Impale, Githian Wall, anything like that. You know, heroic perk of Finn is that just unable to be affected by CC. So if you can be that front line, if you can start to peel away for the Sky, then obviously it's going to be very difficult for anyone to focus down Celeste. Now, interestingly enough, an interaction that Sona picked up between Lance and Sky in the last game, that's something that's been very interesting for me and been on my mind since I saw it. In Githian Wall during Suri Strike, we saw it in that last game, it actually locked Sky up against the wall. And if you're incredibly quick with your fingers on Lance, then this can happen. You can have a big impact in team fights, when traditionally we thought that Sky generally does well into Lance. And in most situations it does. But if you're in that position and you can get that Githian Wall off, then maybe you have an opportunity to lock her down.
Now, a debate we were having was whether or not this would be a jungle Sky and whether or not it would be a crystal power Sky. It's taken by Palmatoro in the jungle with crystal power, so there's going to be a lot of damage coming out from Team Secret in the late game. However, they lack that early game burst.
You know, one thing which is good here for Kestrel, though, is that Team Secret Palmatoro, when he tries to get those forward barrages down, his movement is very telegraphed, makes it easy to land those glimmer shots. So no life, this is a hero that he is good against.
See, I was interested as well about what this Sky would be doing, and it does look he's going full crystal. There's no indication there'll be any sort of weapon power Sky. We did actually see weapon power Sky from Kavalifar in the EU qualifiers, and it was dominating.
Kavalifar's going to go very low here. There's the glimmer shot. One more will be enough, just the autos. And it looks like Tsunami are starting the way they want to continue this game.
Building that wave exactly like they did in the first game, taking a very early gank, dealing with an immobile carry. Like the Saw, same with the Celeste, gets locked up by that Impale. Really, really good early aggressive play from Tsunami is what we're used to seeing from them. And with that Lance, they are making it work.
And that was even with Mowgli there to kind of back up Kavalifar. Didn't quite pan out. Something we're seeing a lot from Finns, interestingly, is this babysitting in the lane. But if you're in the wrong position, it does not matter. Lance is so good at getting across those impales upon anyone he wants.
I think that this is something that you have to do as Team Secret, especially if you're running a pretty immobile carry in lane against a Lance that's going to be roaming. It's so easy to come from vision areas and then just lock up your carry and then everyone else pile in, especially with the heroic perk of Cruel. Makes it just as good as using the afterburn from the glaive. You just run out and you start to apply weakness stacks and then take them down very quickly.
You've got a couple of options here if you're Team Snow. You can decide to put your members in this lane and try and put more pressure down onto Kavalifar, or you can say Mowgli's going to be here all along. Let's try and jungle invade and put the pressure down onto Palmatoro.
This is exactly what we saw Team Secret do in the last game, and I think it's something that Tsunami should take on board. They should be looking to apply as much pressure to Palmatoro as possible now, because If Mowgli's going to sit there and babysit Celeste, then both Cruel and Lance should be looking to lock down the Skye, or at least starve her from some farm, because Skye without farm is very, very poor in terms of damage output, especially as Crystal Power. So you need the gold to make Skye work in that situation. And if you're not applying pressure, Skye's going to get towards potentially a Shatterglass or a Broken Myth very, very quickly.
Okay, so one thing which is super interesting here is that we are seeing the double Crystal Power coming out of Team Secret. We've seen a lot of double weapon power in the North American Championships and actually here in the European Championships on 1.18. We've seen relatively little double Crystal Power. Why does it work here?
I'm interested to see how it works, because I think it's far easier to itemize against double Crystal Power than it is against double weapon power, because naturally most people are going to want to pick up a reflex block of sorts during this game and then obviously build that towards an Aegis, as Sona is laughing because...
Are you sure you don't sell the reflex block? That's what you said.
Okay, I've learned my lesson, friends, thank you. But honestly, I think it's far easier, as most traditional hero builds will itemize very readily against Crystal Power, so I'm looking forward to seeing how this picks up. Obviously, we're going to see some Pierce come out. Broken Myth is going to be a staple item, I think, for both Palmatoro and Cavalifar. So I think maybe Broken Myth first to counteract any early shielding that could be coming out from Snow Tsunami.
Have a quick look at this level advantage. Palmatoro is level 6. Look at me is only level 4.
Yes, and that's because there's been a duo jungle of Sisiska and Look at Me, and they haven't put any pressure onto Palmatoro. I think that's been a huge mistake, because now they're getting nothing, right? They got that first kill onto Celeste. Great, well done. Yes, their laner might be getting more experience because it's a solo. It actually hasn't even got any more experience. They're both level 4. So this is just a huge advantage to Team Secret at this point in time. I think Snow Tsunami should have been saying, okay, Finn is babysitting. We can't get anything more from this lane. We should be looking to invade the jungle.
Secret do need to leverage this, though. I mean, they need to take that level 6 Palmatoro and do something with it, potentially. Skye, early on, does have a bit of a power spike when she's got this heavy prism. Lots and lots of damage in the death from above to try and lock people down.
100%. The 3 crystal bits is actually a very early power spike for Skye. The damage output from 3 crystal bits is absolutely ridiculous. And now they're going to be looking to group. I mean, level 6 death from above, that can be a massive impact if they look for a skirmish before anyone else has hit that kind of level. And actually, you can see Snow Tsunami are reacting. Look at me doing some solo jungling just to catch up in terms of level advantage.
He has only just pinged that level 5 as well, though. It's probably about halfway towards level 6, so he's still a long way behind Palmatoro. Also in the farm, he's about 10 farm behind. It's a huge advantage here for Team Secret off of what looked like quite a weak early game.
And that's where all this gold lead is coming from. The farm between the two junglers. Secret right now leading by about 200. They were even further ahead just moments ago, but look at me starting to pull back a little bit from Hell's Heart.
There's level 6. So much damage coming down onto Cavalifar, but there's the Cavalifar. It is absolutely huge. Look at me, has to retreat. Mowgli now gets onto No Life, gonna put the quibble down and says, oi mate, I want a body, here's a quibble for you, and they pick up 2 kills.
Look at that, look at me, look at no one. He is dead, as is the rest of Snow Tsunami. That death from above right there was absolutely ridiculous. I told you it would have an impact. Yes, from Hell's Heart was great, but that was a bait by Team Secret. They knew exactly what was going to happen. You could see it from Cavalifar's positioning. He wanted to be engaged on an unbelievable perfect death from above right there, completely turning the fight. This is just after, by the way, we have just missed the most important part, but you'll see here, okay, we're going to get a rewind.
We got it sorted, guys.
Yeah. So watch here, this is the death from above just before. There we go, death from above. Absolutely.
Death from above gives you health, apparently now.
Look at the damage this death from above does. It does
insane.
4/5 of both Sisiskas and Look at Me's health. It was ridiculous, and that just allowed Palmatoro to follow up on Mowgli and just get another forward barrage here and pick up 2 kills. Really nice bait by Team Secret, good positioning as well.
All right, so coming back out of that replay, you can see Palmatoro has been poked out a decent amount by Snow Tsunami. They're trying to put some of that pressure up in the lane, but Cavalifar now back to his home post, going to be farming up relatively well. If we look across at the items for both of these teams, we have got Broken Myth on Palmatoro now, so if you thought he was doing a lot of damage earlier, it's going to be ridiculous at this point. Sour Blade on No Life, that could be big too, though.
Yeah,
definitely could do. Like, the Solar Blade is absolutely huge, especially on a lane at Kestrel. You get so much extra damage from Hell's Heart. Not going to connect there, and they will just back away. Sisiska's being caught.
Yeah, he's got to be careful here. Death from above, that's actually going to stun him up. Fountain not doing enough. Palmatoro able to come in with Cavalifar, do the damage he needed. I
mean, if that Heliogenesis didn't kill him, I tell you what, the ultimate would have done. Yeah. It would have been just absolutely annihilation here, and Team Secret have turned a switch from that first game and looking to really ramp up. I told you, I think the mistake that Snow Tsunami made was allowing Palmatoro the time and space to solo farm the jungle. It just gave him so much experience and a good gold income. Broken Myth. Wow.
Mowgli, right?
Mowgli. Holy Mowgli, indeed. That was absolutely ridiculous. No one, even we weren't expecting anything like that. That was so good right there from Mowgli. And they managed to secure the gold mine to boot as well. You know, people say he is the best Finn in the world, potentially. Well, he is showing exactly why. Look at him here.
Oh, this is so sick.
It's just like, hello, No Life? Come over here.
Is there any vision there? He must have seen it from maybe minion vision as he walked into the brush, but
Predicted it, yeah.
Essentially completely blind in most situations. There's no scout trap there, there's no flare. Mowgli just using that sixth sense to make some excellent forced accords. Maybe he just thought maybe someone is there looking for the one-shot, one-kill maybe. He was like, okay, then maybe they're going to go for the snipe with the one-shot, one-kill. Well, he predicted it absolutely perfectly. Mowgli, what a god.
Team Secret are off to such a good start in this game. They're 16.3k to the 14.6 of Snow Tsunami, and they're leading by a decent amount of kills. It feels like Snow Tsunami, they're taking quite some time to ramp up right now.
What I love as well from Team Secret here is the Finn. There's no way that Krull is going to be able to get onto the Celeste or the Sky and stick on them, because the Finn is just there to stop him getting there. He's got the polite company, he's got the quibble, he's got the forced accord. He can disengage and disengage and disengage.
The issue here for Snow Tsunami, in my opinion, is that you're basically going up against a double threat composition in the form of Celeste and Sky. You can only realistically lock one person up with Krull and Lance. You can't apply weakness stacks to everybody. So if you're trying to deal with one of them, then the other one is going to be doing all the damage. And then you're relying on Kestrel to basically attempt to solo kill the other carry, which just is going to be very difficult.
Forced accord, they do use that reflex block to get away, but Cisco very low. And once again, Team Secret just cleaning up these fights.
Kavalafa has been a god on Celeste, but I tell you what, Palmatoro on Sky right here, these forward barrages have been on point, angle and everything. And honestly, Lance has been a target because he can so easily be locked up by death from above and also be an easy target for the slow from Mowgli. He just absorbs all of the damage coming up from forward barrage and is going down very easily.
Oh, look at this. Pressure on the turret from Team Secret. No life very low. He can't really contest, but a one-shot, one-kill. Gonna do some good damage onto Mowgli. Look at me, might have bitten off a bit too much here. He's got to be very, very careful as the Supernova takes him to within an inch of his life. Or unlife.
Yes, unlife, so close there. So let's just take stock of items now. We haven't had a chance to have too much of a look at them. There's the Shiver Steel for Look At Me. The only realistically the biggest item he's got. Obviously everyone very early itemizing for shielding. They need to be able to block that crystal power threat from both the Sky and the Celeste. I told you that was probably the easiest course of action for everybody. You're going to see maybe even double ages at some point. That may be a thing. We're going to see reflex block already from No Life, but he is mainly going towards that critical strike Kestrel build that we have seen. Either, I think this is going to be Tornado Trigger and then maybe into Tyrant's Monocle later on. We'll have to see. With the Revolver, maybe that'll go towards some more attack speed, then you'll see the Tornado Trigger come out. Look at the Warhorn. Mowgli's got the Warhorn there, so that means they're going to be having a good amount of movement speed to reposition. That's very, very good when trying to escape. Another forced accord.
Mowgli with another great forced accord, hooking in two people there. It's going to force Tsunami to try and get back, but they do not have a turret. No life going onto the back line. He wants Kavalafar, but he's got to be careful. Mowgli helping out. Palmatoro dealing with Look At Me on the side as well. Death from above, going to get a good stun there. No life does not have the damage. Solar Storm doing great work as Palmatoro jumps over the wall, able to dodge out from Look At Me. Look At Me just not able to stick on the right target. The Cisco falls too. 7 kills to 1. Team Secret are looking unbelievably good in this game 3.
And Palmatoro, I mean, this is just honestly a story of Palmatoro being left to his own devices early on. He's just ramped up so very quickly, working towards what looks to be an Eve of Harvest. There is a lot of one-shot, one-kill, not able to go. They've actually picked up upgrades for boots because they do value that ability to reposition. They need to be able to get away from the Krull. But you could see there, Krull just not offering any form of a threat towards Palmatoro. And once that Eve of Harvest has been completed, especially with the low damage output that we're seeing from Look At Me, I don't think anyone is going to be able to deal with the Sky. And Celeste is just being left to her own devices. You could see No Life got a really good position on her and just wasn't able to burst her out.
It's exactly what you said earlier, Scoundrel. The double threat coming out here from Team Secret means that Snow Tsunami have to try and make these desperation plays. They have to try and active camo onto the Celeste to try and take her down. But Palmatoro can just 1v1 the Krull, which is something that should never happen when he starts getting these items.
Traditionally, we've seen Krull, especially from EU, picked into singular threat compositions because Krull then obviously has a target that he wants to focus. In this situation, Krull is split because both Celeste and Palmatoro's damage outputs are insane at this point. By the way, 2 Eve of Harvests coming out, making it far more difficult to have that damage needed to deal with them. And obviously, as they kite back, backwards with the slow from Mowgli. It's going to be so much easier to start to sustain up. But look at me going for a desperation play.
He's trying to get onto Kavalifar, but Kavalifar will be able to survive Mowgli there.
What's the cord?
Into the Solar Storm. No, from Hell's Heart does land onto Kavalifar, but he's going to be able to dodge away. Palmatoro is untouched in this entire fight. Kavalifar's still alive. Palmatoro says, look at me, I am going to take you down. So Siska tries to retreat, but there is nowhere to go for this Tsunami.
Man, the polite companies in that fight were disgusting. Mowgli doing such a good job of keeping both his threats alive.
Do you know what's so interesting? It kind of substitutes the need for a Frostburn against something like a Cruel, because you are slowing people down, especially as a Finn. It's very easy to do so, and that allows people to regen with the Eve of Harvest. You saw that, Fostercore just missing. You saw Kavalifar consistently regenning with the Heliogenesis with that Eve of Harvest. Like you said, Sona, Palmatoro untouched, and this is the crux for Snow Tsunami. They can only focus one of these threats with their composition. You're putting too much pressure on No Life to do a singular, basically assassination job. Just not going to happen at this point in time because Team Secret is so far ahead.
Especially when No Life, I mean, if you look at his items, he's basically just completed the Starblade and then defense. Yeah. He needs something like the Tyrant's Monocle, so the Glimmer Shots can crit and wipe out the squishy members of Team Secret before they sustain back with their Eves of Harvest.
Yeah, and he's picked up the Aegis. Like I said, Aegis had to be an early consideration, but honestly, at this point, they gave too much time to Team Secret. They needed to be early, aggressive. They needed to shut down the gold of one of these carries. They didn't do either because of the way Team Secret positioned their early laners. They put Mowgli into babysit and then no one punished Palmatoro. So now they're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
I love the itemization from Mowgli as well. He's gone for that chronograph, so he's getting the cooldown reduction.
Yeah.
More polite companies, more quibbles, more force to courts.
Yeah.
They're going to pick up the gold mine for themselves. They push themselves 7,000 gold ahead.
They can't get past Mowgli at this point in time. They can't get past the peel that he's providing for both Palmatoro and Kavalifar. And obviously they're going for Kavalifar because he is the least mobile, he's the easiest target. But honestly, I think Palmatoro's damage output, especially when chasing or even just kiting backwards, has been better at this point in time. Obviously, the gold income's been better for Kavalifar because of the CS. But honestly, this has been really, really good for Team Secret. And I just don't see a way for Snow Tsunami to make their way back unless something horrific happens and they're able to focus two people at the same time.
Oh, look at me. Wow. He's going to get forced to cord it in. Actually, Siska wants to turn this fight back around. The stun coming on to No Life. Great core collapse from Kavalifar. Death from above. Wipes them out. It's comboed beautifully with the Solar Storm. No Life surely soon to follow. Ace coming through from Team Secret. 12 kills to 1.
And you saw Palmatoro fist pump in the air. He knows exactly what Team Secret have done right here. This is securing this second game. Snow Tsunami, well, they have turned into a small wave on a beach right now because there's no way they come back. The problem for them is because of the way their composition is formed, they have really good single target burst. There's no realistic AoE here that can deal significant damage. Kestrel and Look at Me both designed to take out one target. The problem is you have two that are equally as threatening, and two that if you leave one of them alone will completely wipe up the team fight with their AoE damage. Death from Above and Heliogenesis have been ridiculous.
I have to think this all comes down to the fact that Palmatoro was level 6 when Look at Me was level 4. It all comes down to the fact they let him farm in that jungle. They got the advantage and they just let him get the CS. No Life. He tries to active camo away, but goodbye Tsunami. He's gonna get destroyed. Again the stun, again the kill. So Siska tries to jump away, but no Life.
And Team Secret Team Secret are going to be finishing with the Kraken right here. AoE damage too much for Snow Tsunami to deal with. This has been a dominant display this game. They have turned up, they have turned things around, and Snow Tsunami, they've got a lot of thinking to do here, Jackson.
They really do, because Team Secret is now one win away from
so far.
All right, guys, so the draft is ready to go. We're going to be jumping back into it here, but it is going to be Team Secret holding on to that Adagio ban. Arden is going to be the first pick instead of the ban there for Tsunami, though.
Yeah, and looking at here, Team Secret, they have their signature heroes so far. Picking up that Sky, they have that early game. Glaive gives them that early game. And late game, everybody is going to be trying to peel for that Sky.
All right, so with that Arden, they've set themselves up for a Ringo. That's a first for today, and a Petal on top of that as well. Secret, they do have that Sky did a very good job with it early on. Could this actually be a repeat comp with Celeste?
Well, one of the things that I do have to note out here, you do have that Ringo up in lane, going up against a Glaive that likes to put a lot of pressure, that likes that early game lane ganks. So Sasiska is going to have to play a huge role in actually sitting in the lane more, babysitting with that Vanguard.
Okay, well, we'll have to see where this one goes. The Petal versus Saw was the grudge mentioned, but as we get into it, it's going to be the good, the bad, and the ugly with Action Jackson, Sona, and X-Scoundrel.
Tsunami picking up a Petal in this game. Certainly something that could be awesome. We heard Look at Me mention it in your interview with him earlier, something that he thought Team Secret should be afraid of. Should they be afraid of it?
I think so. I mean, we have seen Petal across both 117 and now obviously in 118 she was unchanged. The build that we traditionally saw was alternating current, but we have seen obviously double Shatterglass from Look at Me in the jungle when we saw him play at this tournament. So I'm looking forward to seeing where he decides to go with this and how effective it's going to be against, you know, things like the front line of Mowgli on this Finn and obviously Glaive here, because obviously they do have potential to slow those Munions down. They do have potential with a little bit of AoE damage from the Quinn as well, and obviously the AoE damage from Palmatoro. Maybe they can deal with those Munions very effectively, so that Shatterglass build may be slightly less effective.
All right, well, we'll have to see if Team Secret can deal with the Petal. If they can, ladies and gentlemen, they need one more win to become the spring champions of Europe, the 3-time champions of the region. Make some noise. This could be the last game of the Grand Finals.
This is going to be a super exciting game. Team Secret right here. Kvalifar on that Sky. We've seen him have an absolutely ridiculous impact with it. And obviously he's such a mechanical god like Kvalifar. We've seen just Skies do some 1v3s. We've seen Skies basically single-handedly carry team fights. So again, Team Secret with the Sky, I'm looking forward to potentially seeing some big plays.
One thing I want to bring up about that Sky as well has gone for that Weapon Blade first. Of course, some laners do take the Weapon Blade for the easier farm. But on Sky, if you get a Crystal Bit, you can just use that forward barrage to take it out. So I expect it to be a weapon power Sky in that lane.
I want to agree with you, but I don't. I think with the Glaive and the Finn, I just think that you're severely limiting yourself as a weapon power Sky.
Well, if
here.
I'm right, then you have to eat your tie.
I really like this tie, and it's made of wool.
That's the rules, man.
I will, yeah. Maybe we might see some crystals. You usually see crystal bit in the jungle because it just means you can chunk through things quicker with forward barrage. But if we see a weapon power Sky, which we have seen Kvalifar do before, I'm excited.
Okay, so one other thing I'm excited for is No Life on the Ringo, something we've seen relatively little of on 118 so far. What makes it work with this composition? I mean, why Ringo, Petal, and Arden?
It's interesting, it just provides, again, it's like a more of a double threat type composition that you see. Arden just provides a layer of protection with the gauntlet, and then Ringo obviously being that early game transition. Petal then can have an impact in the mid to late game, especially if she goes that alternating current build. Looks like it potentially could be Shatterglass though with the Eclipse Prism, so it might be a double Shatterglass composition once more for Look at Me, who just did serious amounts of burst damage, and those Munions were really hitting hard here. But yeah, the Ringo, I think, just is very good, especially in the early to mid game, at dealing huge amounts of burst damage to critical strike and all that kind of thing.
Well, Kvalifar has just picked up the double crystal bit and the energy battery, so I'm going to say it's probably a crystal power Sky.
I'm very happy I don't have to eat my tie. I would have been very surprised if it was a weapon power Sky. I just don't think it's as powerful, especially in a situation where realistically you don't want to be in auto attack range here, especially with No Life being on a weapon power Ringo. You want to be repositioning, being as far away as possible, maybe picking up a Frostburn, kiting backwards, you know, that kind of thing.
I was expecting the third option, the utility tank Sky.
Oh,
I mean, that would make so much more
about that
sense.
one.
But looking across the items as a whole here, No Life definitely going for that weapon power. We've seen Crystal Ringo sometimes, actually more frequently in Europe during the qualifiers, but that was on 117. When we've seen him on 118, tends to be the weapon power. We've got, Look at Me, as you said earlier, building that Eclipse Prism. He's picking up a few more crystal bits now and that light shield. Maybe going towards a Shatterglass, maybe a Frostburn, something we used to see a lot out of Petals back in the day.
Yeah, but given the way that Look at Me has played Petal in this tournament so far, I wouldn't be surprised to see basically a double Shatterglass again. I can't work out if that's because they were dominating so hard that he went for double Shatterglass, but I'm super interested to see his build path going forward here. I do like the early itemization of lots of shielding because Kvalifar is going to be the biggest damage threat, I think. I imagine someone's going to pick up some armor. I wouldn't be surprised to see No Life maybe just pick up a light armor or something just to be sure that he won't be taken down easily by Palmataro, or at least as easily as he could be. But Palmataro going for a Sorrow Blade. You know, that's a very standard first item build here for the Glaive. I imagine Kvalifar going for a Broken Myth, especially having been in lane. Fountain going for Mowgli, and looks like we can't quite see what Sasiska is going for, but I imagine Fountain will be the point of call. It is basically the optimal first item choice for most roaming supports these days. Yes, there you go.
Yeah, it definitely works out well if you get that Fountain early on. And Very tense early game here. I think you can feel the hesitation from these teams. They know, obviously Team Secret know if they win, they are the 3-time European champions. And Snow Tsunami are just being a little bit more apprehensive, holding back a little bit more, not going for those aggressive early plays that have worked out so well for them in the past.
I mean, can they go for those aggressive early plays, though? I feel like Petal, yes, you do a lot of damage early on, but Palmatoro, if you reposition the Petal with the Afterburn, you can do so much work because you've got to use a lot of energy to plant seed and trampoline away.
I feel like you just can't duel against this composition from Team Secret early on in the jungle. Both Finn and Palmatoro, huge amounts of CC and lots of good dueling potential 2 versus 2. I think it's why you're seeing Sisiska spend a lot of time with no life in lane, especially versus this Sky. He's going to need that extra layer of protection. And Team Secret, they could have an opportunity to be aggressive in the jungle here. Sky, I think, will remain fairly safe against the Ringo and Arden in lane. There's no way that she's going to get locked up particularly easy, especially pre-6. So I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe Palmatoro and Mowgli start to be a little bit more aggressive. But as we have seen previously, Mowgli does like to babysit Kvalifar, as Kvalifar does a lot of times just become a huge threat.
We've seen Sisiska kind of doing the same thing this game as well.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of gold on his Iron Guard already just because he's been soaking up entire waves of minions up in that lane. Kvalifar has been so threatening with the early poke that makes a lot of sense. I think Tsunami needed to do this. Whoa, Kvalifar could be in a bad situation here, though.
Kvalifar's going to get taken out. Mowgli on the wrong side of this fight as well. Does pop that polite company and tries to get the damage down. If you're Snow, you are so happy with that first blood. You don't need to keep pushing for anything more here.
No, and that's exactly what Ringo can do in the early game. He's got huge amounts of damage coming out from that weapon power build. You saw how quickly Kvalifar went down, and I think this is kind of the tactic that Snow Tsunami is looking to employ. And instead of trying to lock Sky down just singularly with CC and try and burst her that way, you're just going to say, well, if we get in auto attack range, if No Life can land some basic attacks, we can just burst her with the damage that Ringo can put out between, 6 and 15 minutes. It's just going to be when it gets beyond that, when Sky becomes very easy to reposition and puts out a huge amount of damage of her own, that's when I'm going to start to worry for Snow Tsunami.
It's worth noting that both of the junglers had their ultimates in that fight. Look at me use spontaneous combustion to great effect, but Palmatoro wasn't close enough to try and maybe go in and get some good damage down with the Blood Song. Also, spontaneous combustion is just kind of a better ability in a lot of these skirmishes. It does damage and heals you guys back up, whereas Palmatoro, his ability is much more selfish. It really just works for him.
Yeah, exactly, and it's designed specifically with this weapon-powered Glade build to be a damaging threat to the carry that you want to get on top of, and I imagine Ringo may be the target, especially earlier on. There's the Hellfire Brew.
They're going to jump onto Kvalifar. Sisiska tries to go in. They'll be happy with the spontaneous combustion. That's a huge amount of damage onto Kvalifar, but he'll be able to back away for now.
That combo right there of Hellfire Brew into spontaneous combustion deals huge amounts of burst damage. I'm going to go for the turret.
Oh, No Life. Got to be a bit careful here. Afterburn not going to knock him into the turret, though. Palmatoro is on the retreat now as well. Look at the Munions doing so much damage. Palmatoro, he can't sustain back up, but Tsunami, force the cord onto both people. Kvalifar, he's nearby. It's going to be another kill to No Life. Where is it? Vanguard, it keeps him safe. The gauntlet buys him time. Mowgli, he can't be stunned, but he also doesn't have any energy. He doesn't have any damage. No Life gets out of there. Sisiska trying to deal with Kvalifar here. I don't think he's going to be able to, but very solid fight from Snow. They just went a bit too deep at the end.
A little bit too deep at the end there. Gave a little bit back to Team Secret, which may not have been ideal, but what a brilliant gauntlet there. No Life able to escape on minimal life, but what it does do is allow Team Secret to capitalize on this gold mine. Let's have a look here. They go very deep for Palmatoro in this situation. Mowgli just does a good job of slowing everybody down. Look at that polite company right there. Probably bought his team the time. He goes in with that forced accord, brings them back in, and then suddenly, obviously, Kvalifar is here to stand up. Look at the gauntlet, though. This is the most important part. Gauntlet basically keeps No Life alive.
A huge thing in that fight as well is Snow Tsunami got just out of turret range before the forced accord. It meant that the turret aggro dropped, targeted the minions. They didn't attack at all, so then they were able to survive.
Also, No Life popped his boots at basically the exact correct time. And also, there wasn't a lock-on for Kvalifar. He wasn't able to reposition.
Forced accord! Pulling them all in. Sisiska's very low. Wow. Look at me. The afterbun comes out onto No Life as well. And they're going to keep going for the fight. Death from above. Doesn't quite connect. Sisiska off towards the side. That's another kill for Team Secret as they pick up 2.
It's not about connecting with death from above sometimes, it's just about getting it so that you're zoning them away from moving through it. That meant they had to take an elongated route to get around that turret, and it gave the time for a repositioning and a forward barrage to at least pick off one of the kills. Mowgli has been MVP on this Finn. Jackson, you picked up on it right at the start. It has been such a driving force behind some of the wins that Team Secret have picked up.
Team Secret, Mowgli actually said the other day in our interviews with him that he's kind of fallen out of love with Finn. We touched on it yesterday, but again, falling back on that comfort pick when it comes down to the wire in the grand finals. This is something that has carried Team Secret through to victory again and again when it really matters. Mowgli, he's such a star player.
He absolutely is. He has got Force of Cord off cooldown should he want to choose another fight, but he's a little bit low on energy, as is Kavalafar, so they may be looking to wait a little bit before making something happen. But honestly, this is looking good for Team Secret once more. Again, you get Skye to that late game. It may be difficult to lock her down. You did see the combo between Hellfire Brew and Spontaneous Combustion, which did deal a huge amount of damage. But once you get that reflex block on Hellfire Brew, you will start to reduce the effect of it and obviously then take less damage. I would like to see an Aegis ASAP from Kavalafar. I think obviously the majority of the damage he probably has to deal with is the Spontaneous Combustion at this point, especially if he can keep himself out of basic attack range of no life.
Hellfire Brew does come in.
Blocked.
Yeah, it's blocked. So Kavalafar is going to be able to deal with that one. No combo from the ultimates out of the carries from Snow Tsunami is going to come across. Crucible, perfectly timed there. So Mowgli getting denied as well. Ultimates across the board being used to no effect.
Maybe Snow Tsunami looking for another engage.
Oh, that one was used to effect though. Gauntlet, stunning Palmatoro, and Kavalafar.
Death from above.
Great death from above. Siska has no easy way out of this one. Fountain might keep him alive though. Kavalafar jumping in, no life. He's got some great damage, but it's not enough. Polite company, Mowgli doing wonders for his team. Fortified health right there was really what made the difference.
Oh, Mowgli. I wanted to pick up on, I was just going to talk about some of the items that we've just seen come out here. Crucible, one of the best items you can pick up against the Finn just because you stop the engage potential. But once you use that Crucible, then you don't have the ability to block for something like an Afterburn that comes down, something like a Death from Above, which could be a team-wide stun. So, you know, there is more than one stone to think about that's being thrown at you at this point in time. The Crucible can obviously only be used once. I like the Shatterglass from Look At Me again. He's going for that heavy sort of crystal power build at this point in time. I think you basically using to have really big spontaneous combustions and obviously provide extra damage to his minions at this point in time. And obviously then you do get that crystal power bonus as well. So yeah, I'm thinking it'll work out well, but right now Team Secret just doesn't feel like Snow Tsunami are providing a big enough threat to Skye, and she's just able to run riot at this point in time. And once that Eve of Harvest is completed, it's going to be even harder to take her out.
It's something we've seen time and time again from Team Secret. They're so good at protecting that backline carry. They're so good at displacing the enemy heroes in a fight that really Snow Tsunami are always on the retreat. They're always on the back foot. They're always playing reactively rather than proactively.
Right now they're looking to change that maybe though as Siska comes in here, no life stunned up the Afterburn. That's beautiful.
It's absolutely huge, and here comes the death from above. That one is very low, trying to stutter step his way away, but he can't manage it. Mowgli doing so much with that polite company. Look at me, says goodbye to the fold. Palmatoro is going to chase down Siska. I don't think he'll be able to chase him out, but Team Secret pick up 2 once again.
Again, Mowgli, and honestly, Palmatoro right there, and got a really good Afterburn, and they were no life unable to block it. I think he just used that reflex block a moment too late. That just allowed Kavalafar to again get a ridiculous death from above, again get a forward barrage that landed across everyone on the enemy team. And once the proactive team is, once Team Secret are being the proactive team, it means that Kavalafar is just able to be from that backline. No one can get on top of him. There isn't really anyone that's able to dive Kavalafar at this point in time. And honestly, I don't know whether Look At Me would have been better off going alternating current and just trying to provide auto attack damage or basic attack damage using that AC from the backline at this point in time. It doesn't feel like Shatterglass is having too much of an impact, apart from the extended healing and obviously the damage that the spontaneous combustion can do.
Yeah, so right now, I mean, if you look at the items, like we were just talking about a second ago, Team Secret, they have a big gold lead. They're sitting at almost 3,000 ahead of Snow Tsunami. Well, with the power spikes they've picked up for themselves. Palmatoro has Atlas Pauldron, Sorrow Blade. Mowgli has the Warhorn and the Fountain, and Kavalafar has the Broken Myth and Eve. If you Look At Me, he's just got one big item, and he's picked up an infusion because he needs a short-term band-aid to do something, but here comes what could be a fight.
Look at me trying to position in the bush. Like, if he'd been there and Mowgli hadn't walked in, that's a superb position for spontaneous combustion.
Yeah, absolutely. We had to trampoline away at that point. Just going to have a potential tornado trigger coming out here, or maybe work towards a Tyrant's monocle for Palmatoro. Looks like a Hellfire Bruise coming through, though.
Yeah, Cavalifar doesn't reflex block that one. Mowgli giving him a bit more fortified health, but Tsunami, they can't follow on the ultimate. Here comes the death from above. Look at me, trampolining in. He wants to get this fight moving, but he's got to be careful. Palmatoro trapped inside of the gauntlet. Look at me, he's still taking a lot of ambient. There's a good stun onto Siska. Team Secret, they want to force something here, but Palmatoro needs to get out of there. The fountain has already been used for both teams, so Palmatoro is sitting at this health for the rest of the fight. Cavalifar needs to do all the work for himself, and I think Tsunami realized that he can.
You can see what Team Snow Tsunami are trying to do. No life! He's going to get knocked back. The afterburn comes out. Can No Life survive? No, he cannot. And it's another kill for Team Secret.
Mowgli again with a great forced accord timing. Snow Tsunami just weren't expecting it. They're going to combine. They don't have the energy for forward barrage here. It's not going to happen. It finally comes down onto the turret. They're going to back off. Now, this is something that we just seen time and time again during these team fights. There is no way to deal with Skye unless you get her in a gauntlet, unless you lock her up in the immediate gauntlet or lock her in. There is just no way that you're going to deal with the Skye. With a Ringo and a Petal, I don't see a way that Skye is under threat. As soon as Ringo tries to get in range of the Skye, he will just go down to the superior damage that Skye's putting out at this point.
Mowgli truly is the king of the jungle in this game. You just cannot get past him at all. He dictates the pace of these fights. He lets Palmatoro jump in, run away on low health. It means that you can reposition with Cavalifar. It's so difficult for anyone to walk past that Finn.
Team Secret are so close right now to their third championship. You can tell in the way they're playing. They're being so assertive. They want to make the moves forward here and lock this one down.
And honestly, it's getting to the point in the game where Weapon Power Ringo is going to start to fall off. He's gone for that Weapon Power Ringo build that we have seen become more popular, especially in America. But Mowgli, he's ready. He's ready for something to happen here.
Oh, pulls in the minions. That was so close to picking up on Look at Me, who doesn't have a reflex block.
Hellfire Brew.
Yeah, he's actually throwing out the Hellfire here. Maybe Snow Tsunami wants to fight, but Siska struggling to get in a position for the Great Gauntlet, and he's getting poked down. He's got to be careful. Cavalifar does not land the death from above, but the damage is there. Siska, the fountain, it might not be enough, but he gets out of the Gauntlet. Palmatoro going for the rummer here might not be the best call. No, so much AoE damage out of Team Secret. Tsunami, they just can't seem to win a fight.
Oh my word. And honestly, the most important thing here is when that Hellfire Brew came out, Reflex Block was not used. The Aegis was not activated because Cavalifar has triggered that he knows the only thing that's going to stop him from doing his job in a team fight is that Gauntlet. He's saving it for the Gauntlet. And you saw in that situation, he didn't even need to use it as he walked through the Gauntlet because there was no way that they were going to capitalize on him. And again, this is just Snow Tsunami. There's no way to deal with this Skye as a threat. They don't have any good gap closers. Their damage, if they get close enough to Skye, are going to be killed before they can do the right thing to her. It's all about whether they can get into a good position, they can flank on Skye. There's no way they win this in a straight-up forward team fight at this point.
Time and time again, we think that Snow Tsunami have it. They get a good gauntlet off, they position properly, a good fountain keeps one of them alive, but the death from above, stunning up a couple of members, the Finn with the quibble, it's so difficult for them to win any sort of fight.
Nice Crucible there, but as you know, Finn has a very low cooldown of Forced Accord at this level, and it will be up before the Crucible is. He'll have a limited time period where they can make a fight happen, especially with Kraken. This could be hugely influential.
Snow Tsunami, they need to defend this. If they lose this game, they are done. They're taking home the second place. Only 2 turrets stand between Team Secret and their third championship. Mowgli not going to land the Forced Accord, but here comes the fight.
Here comes the fight. The Kraken's still on the turrets. Cavalifar is low. Siska's taken down very low in the middle. Cavalifar repositions. Look at me.
This is it.
Off the mat. Snow Tsunami are melting off the fold.
Kraken is still so healthy. There is no way that Tsunami can defend this. No
This is